Hello guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Trouble, and today I'm going to be continuing my review of the Berserk manga series, the Golden Age art manga, and we're going to be picking up from where we left off last time, which was Guts, the Band of the Hawk, victory of retaking Doldbury Castle. And so the Band of the Hawk, they won a big victory, they saved Midland, and now they're coming back to Midland. They're the heroes of Midland, the saviors of the kingdom of Midland. Um, excuse me. And with that said, I have my notes right here, and let's just jump right on in. So we pick up immediately from where we left off. This time, the commanders, the upper echelon of the Band of Hawks, have been invited to a ball, a victory ball, and everyone's there. All the high-ranking nobles, all the beautiful noble women, they're all there. Everyone is kind of freaked out. I think Rickett says that he's only ever heard of this place in fairy tales, and that's the first time they're there. Crocus is 100% enjoying because this is exactly what he wants. This is the high life for him. He's made it. Guts is kind of creeped out by it. Guts doesn't want to be here. He's kind of freaked out. All the girls are swooning over them. Guts leaves, because all the girls are swooning over them because it's not really his style. Um, but the noblemen, the high-ranking aristocrats, the generals of Midland, they don't like this. And Lord, I think it's Layden. I got it right here. Um, Laban, and it's Laban and Owen. They're kind of talking about it, saying, in this time of peace, like what's gonna happen. Griffith's gonna have to learn to live in the castle, because can't be out there winning victories anymore because it's peacetime now. But Casca is being swarmed by a bunch of dudes, and she doesn't like it, so she pulls Guts. She pulls him away and to get away from them because they won't leave her alone. She says that she's like an exotic beast to them. Um, Casca and Guts they start talking, about how unnatural it is, and how this is not for them. Her wearing a dress and all that. They're falling in love. They are. But Casca, eventually, the king of Midland and the royal family comes out. They finally arrive. Casca leaves and goes back inside, and the king starts to give his speech. But Guts doesn't go with her because apparently Griffith is planning something, and we don't know what it is yet. But anyway, the king of Midland basically catches us up on what's been going on as of late, and apparently they've had the peace treaty with the Chuda. I think it's the Chuda Empire, and he continues to talk about a whole bunch of things in this time of peace, and he talks also about Griffith and the Band of Hawk and how he's gonna give them a promotion because they've been performing so well, and Griffith's going to get the highest ranking military, the ranking. Uh, Basically, he's gonna be the leader of Midland's military, the White Hawk Phoenix or the White Phoenix Hawk, or something like that, or the Knight of the White Phoenix or the White Phoenix Knight. There we go. It's the White Phoenix Knight. There we go. We got it now. Um, anyway, so eventually she keeps talking, and they eventually it's a toast, and Charlotte's there, and Charlotte's basically she's just being Charlotte. She's swooning over Griffith because she's fully, really, and truly madly in love with him at this point. Um, but Griffith takes a drink, and the aristocrats, the conservative aristocrats of the royal court, poisons Griffith. Because if you remember, in my last review, they weren't happy about all this low-born commoner rising to the highest rank in Midland. Um, and the queen is involved. So now we're dealing with that, and Griffith gets poisoned. Griffith collapses, and then we see the waiter is actually a soldier, a commander in the Midlands Army, and he says, I've made more tonight than I've ever made in 10 years serving in the military. And with this, I'm set. All I have to do is escape the city. And if you remember earlier, Guts did not go back in with Casca. That's because Guts is killing this dude, and this dude rides up, and Guts cuts his head off in a single swing. And you might be saying, well, Guts' sword was broken in the last one. Yes, true. And now he has a even cooler fucking sword. This sword is fucking amazing. Like, it's one of the best swords ever, man. Not gonna lie, I really like the design of this sword. Um, but uh, after that, we see the conservative aristocrats, the ones who poisoned Griffith, the ones behind this scheme. We see them all gather, and they're talking about, oh, it went smoothly. You know, you're a great tactician, Fusos, and Fusos is sweating because Griffith's blackmailing him at this point. Um, he's sweating. He's all of this, and eventually he asks to leave, and they're all kind of concerned about him. But they all keep talking, and the queen thanks them for helping him, for helping her. My bad, for helping her, and then smoke starts to come out of nowhere, and it turns out that Griffith is not dead, and Griffith planned all of this. The poison was fake. It wasn't real poison. It was just like a hypnotic concoction. No, not hypnotic, some herbal concoction that put him in a coma, a coma-like state of death. But he's fine. He's fine, and he kills the queen. He sets the entire castle on fire and burns everyone in there to death. We see him and Fossos get into a little back and forth. They get into a little back and forth there, and Fossos realizes just how fucking terrifying Griffith is, and he falls to his knees basically kneeling before him, and Griffith doesn't even need to put a hand on him. Griffith eventually brings him back to his daughter, because he took his daughter, and Griffith pays off for some mercenaries, and these mercenaries, they're like, this is a lot of money. Let's we could get out of this, and if he tries to cut us off, we just blackmail him with the kidnapping. But Guts is there, and Guts has a new sword, and this fucking sword is cool, and I'll never get over how fucking cool this sword is. It's the coolest one. Honestly, it's the coolest one in the Golden Age arc that he has so far. It's like his cool is like the coolest sword ever. This sword is fucking amazing. Not gonna lie, 10 out of 10 on the design for this one for me. Or it's amazing. But anyway, let's just continue. Guts kills all of them. Guts wanted to take back the coin that Griffith gave them, but Griffith told them to leave it. Griffith tells Guts to leave it because they earned it. It's their coin. And with that, all the loose ends have been tied up. All the obstacles that were in Griffith's way to him becoming the king of Midland is dead. Julius's son Adon, who was supposed to marry Princess Charlotte, the queen, all the conservative aristocrats in the royal court of Midland are dead, and Griffith is just—it's a straight shot to becoming the king of Midland, because he has Charlotte in his palms right now. Charlotte's in his palms, so the only thing now is for him to get promoted and eventually start to court Charlotte, or start to manipulate and begin courting Charlotte. And actually, I'm really curious as to how that would have went down, because the King of Midland, well, as it goes on, you're going to realize the King of Midland's view towards Charlotte. And I'm actually curious how Griffith was planning to deal with him, because if Griffith was planning on marrying Charlotte, I don't think the King of Midland would have been happy about it. And actually, I would be pretty. I would. I'm not gonna lie. I would be pretty curious to see how Griffith would have dealt with the King of Midland. But anyway, with that said, everyone's drinking, everyone's celebrating, and no, not really. Everyone's kind of worried because at this point they still think that Griffith is poisoned. So everyone's at the tavern. Griffith walks in. Casca hugs him. Casca hugs him, and she's all. Everyone's like, ooh, because everyone kind of knows that Casca has feelings for Griffith, but after the after that, Griffith tells everyone he's fine, and everyone's fine. But we cut away a couple of days later, and we see the queen is being buried, and because everyone thinks that the assassination attempt on Griffith was a third nation party trying to intervene, trying to stop the peace agreement between Midland and Chowder. And so they blamed this on the death of the queen, and the death of the queen, all that. They blamed it on this like third party nation trying to intervene. That's what they were saying, saying. So a third, basically, what it was, it's like this. So they say that it was a Chowder assassin, but the people of Midland think that no, it was a third party nation saying it's a Chowder assassin to prevent peace between Chowder and Midland. Because obviously, if Chowder assassinated the Queen of Midland and tried to assassinate the hero of Midland, then that would mean that Midland would have to retaliate because they assassinated the Queen. Um, yeah, so uh, and Guts eventually, and after this, it's the big moment now. It's this. This is it. This is the big moment. Guts finally, he's been thinking about this for a while. He's been planning for a while. Guts, at this point, he realizes that there's nothing left he can do. There's nothing at all, and he decides to leave the band of the Hawk. Now, the morning that he decides to leave the band of the Hawk, Casca was awake because she couldn't sleep, and she kind of saw him. And Casca runs after him, and while she was running after him, she ran past Judah, and Crocus. And eventually she stops. She tries to convince him not to go. Judah and Crocus comes out and they're like, "Yo, let's go for a drink." And they go to the tavern, and then they're like, "Why? Why do you want to leave? Are you unhappy? Is there something like, why do you want to leave? We don't understand." Guts explains to him is that he doesn't like Griffith looking down on him. He wants to be Griffith's equal, which pisses Crocus off, and Crocus goes on this whole tirade to Guts, telling him that this is what most people want. We grew up in the mud. We're going to become nobles, and you want to throw it all away for some childish dream. Because Crocus sees this as childish, yeah? And so he goes on this loud rampage, because this is what Crocus wants. He wants the high life. He wants this prestige. He wants the love. He wants all of this. Because as we said, that he was, as Judah said to us later, is that he was a thief. And to him this is everything, right? Uh, I you might hate Crocus. I don't really hate him. I get it. You're born in the slums and you reach this, you're becoming a freaking noble. Like most of us want this life. If you like look around today, nowadays you see a lot of people out here trying to get that money, trying to make that high life. Financial independence and all that. So I don't really blame him for it. I can understand where he's coming from. Um, but I could see how a lot of people would be annoyed by him and stuff like that. But eventually Crocus walks off because he says he can't stand Guts anymore, and we know Crocus doesn't like Guts. But Judah starts talking to Guts. Judah, he gets into like there's nothing I can do to stop you or anything like that, and yada yada yada, and they go on. But eventually morning comes and Judah decides to walk with Guts all the way to the thing. And as they're walking, Judah gets into a conversation about Casca. And they're walking and talking. The conversation leads to Casca. And if Guts, Judah has been noticing that that Guts and Casca has been getting real close ever since they fell off the cliff, like their relationship. And so, Judah kind of explains that, at first Guts says no because Casca loves Griffith. Everybody knows that Casca loves Griffith, but Judah tells him that yeah, true, but she can never be with Griffith because she can't give Griffith what Griffith needs, and that's to become king of his own kingdom. And the only person who can give Griffith that is Charlotte, the queen, the princess of Midland. And then it goes on. They're talking and it goes back and forth, but eventually they get to the hill. And Crocus again. Crocus comes in, and I can see how a lot of people might be angry with him, but I'm not really angry with him because I understand this. I understand his point of view. Crocus basically tells Guts that I don't like you. I've never liked you, and if I ever the Band of the Hawk would ever meet you on a battlefield again, watch your back. Right? But that's not the important part. The important part of this, I mean, it is important, it's not important, but the most important part of this whole scene is Guts and Griffith. Griffith tells Guts that the requirements are the same. It's the same as 3 years ago. Right? Nothing's changed. So if you want to leave, you're gonna have to fight me. And Guts is convinced. Conviction. right? His conviction, he won't waver, and so he draws his sword, and the two of them take their fighting stance. Casca tries to intervene, and like she's like, "Don't fight, don't fight," and Casca is definitely falling in love with. She's definitely fallen in love with Guts at this point, because she doesn't want Guts to leave. But eventually Griffith is like planning that, and Griffith knows that Guts is stronger. Everybody kind of knows that Guts has gotten stronger in the last 3 years, and Griffith is kind of predicting how it's gonna go. And he's like, I have to hold back, and we get a little panel of him splitting Guts' skull open. Uh, but the fight, eventually they launch themselves at each other, and but Guts cuts Griffith's sword in half, and Guts wins the duel. But nothing was said. All Guts says is "take care, take care." Griffith falls onto his knees, and that's it, man. Griffith falls onto his knees, just broken in disbelief of what just happened. Um, and Guts walks off. Guts says, Guts kind of rationalizes. He's like, he thinks Griffith is strong. Guts idolizes Griffith, right? He wants. That's why he wants to be his equal. He wants to stand with him. So he views Griffith as a strong person. So he sees this as, well, you're gonna be fine. This is just like you passing a pebble in the road. You're gonna get back up. Even if you fall, you get back up and you keep climbing. Because Guts heard what Griffith said on that night with Charlotte. Go back and see my video on assassins, right? When he assassinated, he heard what Griffith said when he assassinated Prince Julius. Yeah, I guess he's the king's brother, so that would make him a prince. Is that he would do anything for his dream, right? He wouldn't let anyone get in the way of his dream. So Guts's rationalization is that, like, Griffith is not gonna let me leave and destroy his dream. He's not gonna let me interfere with him getting what he wants. Like, he's not gonna let that. But Guts was super important to Griffith, and as Griffith walks off, Casca's like, Griffith. Griffith is just unresponsive, and Guts leaves. But that's the end of the departure. It's super sad, super, especially when you know what's coming. See the eclipse. But enough of that. Let's just go on into the next chapter. So the next chapter is the Skull Knight. Skull Knight's first appearance, and so Guts is alone in the woods, and he's kind of taken aback by it because it's the first time in 3 years he's ever been alone. He's never really been alone in the last 3 years. He's like, I forgot, that the only way to cure this unease is if I have my sword. And while he's there, he's thinking, did I do this? Did I give up something special for selfish reason? Did I just throw this all away? Did I throw everything that I got away, right? But eventually he regains his conviction, and as he regains his conviction, something comes up on him. But the thing that comes up on him, it reminds him of Zod, and sooner or later this thing was behind him, and he swings. Nothing's there. He only swings. He's hitting air. But then it turns out that the dude is right there, and Guts is taken back. He's like, I sensed him behind me. Like, I've never mistake the presence of an opponent before. And then the Skull Knight begins to talk. The Skull Knight gives Guts a prophecy, and I have the prophecy right here. And let's just jump right into it. It's on my phone right here, and it's a pretty intense prophecy. It's actually pretty intense, and it goes as such. And I'm going to read it to you. So the gears have indeed begun. You, struggler, take heed. 1 year hence shall be the time of the eclipse. You and your friends, those yet unseen of the fleshless flesh, and that unkingly half of yours shall all be gathered then in that place. A torrent of madness, a tempest of death, for which the human body could never atone, shall sweep over you. But take heed, struggler, you were born from a corpse and began your life from death in the mud. You are closer to death than any. Thus you excel in escaping it. Who is this? Struggler, contend, wriggle. That alone is the sword of one who controls death. Never forget this. Gus says, "Who the hell are you? How do you know about me?" Uh, in the abyss of despair, only he who stands up with broken sword in hand, perhaps. And that's just like that. He disappears. The skull knight disappears. And then right after that, we see Griffith. It's raining. We cut back to Midland, and the palace. It's raining, and Griffith is outside. Griffith. We see Princess Charlotte's room, and Griffith is outside his window. Griffith asked Princess Charlotte to come in, and Princess Charlotte was all scared because she thought, Griffith was gonna die, and then all of a sudden the strings of death. So she's all sad. Like I said, she's basically a pampered princess. Never experienced any struggle or anything like that in her life. So she was terrified that Griffith was going to die. And like I said, she's just madly in love with him at this point. She's well and truly wrapped around Griffith's fingers at this point. And Griffith sleeps with the princess. And one of the maids see this while they were in the middle of doing one of the maid comes along and catches them. And the next morning, Griffith gets arrested. The king comes into Charlotte's room to check, and he sees the water from the dripping rain that dripped off Griffith last night and the blood. Charlotte was a virgin. He sees all of this and he loses his mind. So he goes down and he begins to punish Griffith. He starts whipping him and starts talking about like, I really believed that you could have saved Midland. I really believed in you. But you tainted my daughter. You did all that. And eventually Griffith calls him out on his bullshit, just like Guts did in the Snake Count arc with that mayor of the town. Go check out the Guts versus the Snake Count. Griffith calls him out on his bullshit, right? He's like, no, you just wanted to bang your daughter. She's 16 years old. In times of war, especially like this, political marriages are a thing. The fact that you haven't married her off is creepy in this time of war, and this pisses him off. He whips him to death. Not whip him to death. He just whips him a lot and a lot. Griffith's body is broken and bloodied. Griffith doesn't scream. He doesn't do anything. The king eventually calls in the torturer of Midland, to torture Griffith. But the only condition is you're not allowed to kill him. Let him suffer for a year. And he leaves. He makes the guards that were there with him take a vow of secrecy, never to tell anyone what happened between Griffith and Charlotte. And with that, the king goes back. The king goes back to Charlotte's room, and he tries to assault his daughter. Yeah, man, he tries to assault his daughter, and it shatters him. And it doesn't shatter not because he assaults his daughter. It's because while he was trying to do that, Charlotte screams for Griffith to save her, for Griffith to help her. But eventually, Charlotte manages to kick him off, and he runs out of the room. And at this point, Griffith has shattered his mind, and we're never going to see the King of Midland again until the conviction arc. I'm pretty sure we never see him again until Griffith is resurrected. And if you remember, if you've read the conviction arc, you see just like how broken and distraught he is. But with that said, the Band of the Hawk is summoned, and volleys of arrows, just rain down on them, cutting them down, and they're like, "What is this?" We see like arrows fly at Casca. We see Rickett get shot in the arm. Pippin is like yelling. No one's ever heard Pippin yell before, and everyone is freaking out, like, what's going on? Midlands is turned on them. The Band of the Hawk is being destroyed, and that's it. And that's the departure. The fall of the heroes of Midland. And it's pretty sad. It's pretty dark, and I just like, and I just can't find any words to say because I know it only gets worse from here. Like, it's only downhill. It's gonna continue to go downhill from here. It's pretty interesting. It only gets darker. Next time we're gonna do all the way up until until they rescue Griffith, and then we're gonna get into the eclipse, and it's gonna be the final part. So we have 2 more parts left in this arc, and it's just it's always the hardest part, man. It's always the hardest part. It makes you I always wonder, like, did Guts misinterpret did Griffith only say those things to Charlotte because he was trying to swoon her, or anything like that, and Guts hearing that misinterpreted, believing that this is what Griffith really believes, or maybe Griffith was right, and but he saw Guts as a tool, like he needed Guts, and Guts was different. He already saw Guts as a friend. Honestly, I don't know, man. This is just I read it and I'm just confused. I'm just puzzled. I'm just there's so many things right now. I just all I can feel is just like a heavy burden on my chest. Every time it gets me, every time I read it. Um, but if you don't want to read it because it's sad, you should definitely read it because you get to see Guts use that fucking cool ass sword that Miura has designed for him. It's the coolest out of all of his sword. And me personally, I don't remember. Actually, I don't remember if he gets a new one in the next 3 years or 2 year. No, it's a year. In the next year that he disappears for. But from so far I can tell, this is like Guts' like top two sword, right? I think this design, not power wise or not strength wise. Obviously, the Dragon Slayer is it's the strongest sword, but design wise, this sword is one of the coolest looking sword ever. And if you don't read this arc, if you don't want to go back and read the Heroes of Midland chapters for the Golden Age arc, you should definitely read it for that sword because this sword is fucking amazing. And when Guts uses it, every time we see him use it, it's always amazing. With that said, thank you for watching. Like, comment, all the YouTube things, and I'll see you guys next time. Have a good one.